I was also very mindful to try and not make the film too depressing, which I realize I have failed to a degree, but I tried.
Laura, hi, welcome to Director's Notes.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
No, it's a pleasure. This is a film that I'm so glad I managed to catch as part of the BIFA, the Douglas Hickox Award. Yeah, it's definitely a film that's touched me the most this year on Falling.
Thank you.
I'm quite an emotional person, but after this, I did just have to sit there and sob for about 5 minutes, when you just need to get the emotions out.
Yeah. It happened to me in other films for sure.
Yeah, no, I think it's
Yeah.
good and I think it's cathartic and it's healthy and we need art in that way as well.
Yeah. I think like the more we're told that, we need to pretend to be okay, I think the harder it is. So yeah,
Yeah.
let's not pretend that we're
Let's not
okay if
pretend.
we're not okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
So I've been doing lots of research and sort of listening to different interviews, and thank you for sending me the links to your short films,
Yeah, you're
The
welcome.
Red Hill and The Shift. And I can really see how On Falling came from them. So, I'd love to know about your experience building this feature from the sort of narratives and the themes in those shorts.
Yeah, I feel like it's been like one long process, really. It always felt like I was almost working on the same film. You know what I mean? The subjects that have interested me have kind of always been the same. I'm pretty obsessed with work and like how much it dominates our lives
Yeah.
and how little attention we pay to it, how like we assume it's just normal. And this was like a crisis I sort of went through, still going through, from when I was 18 and I started studying film more seriously. And that was also the time when I started working. And I think those two things happening at the same time meant that I don't know, I couldn't understand how in the films people seemed so free and, characters seemed to have this big life. And then I don't know, I looked at my own and I was like, well, if I wanted to go on a trip, I'd need to like ask for annual leave in advance and maybe I'm not given it. And, and all the financial concerns, like every day thinking what I could afford and what I couldn't afford and all of a sudden also seeing my social life shrink, as like all my friends also started working and all of a sudden shifts wouldn't line up and we couldn't see each other anymore. And it just seemed like life was shrinking and I never felt like it like unshrunk in a way.
Yeah.
So I still feel like it's something that has never been resolved for me. And I guess I'm still trying to work it out through my films and I don't know, hoping that maybe we can look at it with some perspective because I think we associate like we relate so much to work also to do with our identity that it's really hard to like take a step back and look at how we're living and questioning it. Yeah.
No, it's I'm the same as you. I watch films and it's TV series and stuff, and I'm like, that's not true. They wouldn't be out for coffee every day. Like, do you know how much coffee is every day?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's those small kind of things, and that's why I love, films like yours, and obviously with 16 films and the Ken Loach vibe. I like the realism. I need that in my life. I think
Yeah, I think
to
it grounds
see,
us.
yeah, and to see accurate portrayals of work and of life on screen, no
Yeah.
matter how brutal that is. And you've definitely got that. Especially in The Shift, with her, and I was just watching it and then thinking how much it leads on to On Falling. It's the monotony, isn't it?
Yeah. I think that, yeah, it is definitely something to do with the repetition and like also the lack of agency over the job. I think in a lot of obviously in the shift is a character that has no control over her shift pattern. So, as a temporary worker, she loses a shift and we immediately see the impact that that has in her life, almost like the beginning of like a snowball effect.
Yeah.
And with On Falling, obviously as a first feature, it allowed me to look at a lot more. So I think that was what, yeah, that was like the bit that was really rewarding was having like being able to look at this issue through different perspectives.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like types of scarcity that Aurora experiences, but they're not, it's not just financially, and obviously the financial one puts a really big kind of strain in her life and limits what she's able to do, which I also think is something we don't talk enough about.
Yeah.
But then also there is scarcity of connections, of like experiences in her life, and you see how much she longs for them, and how much she also tries to like find these in her life, however she can. Yeah,
Yeah. There's the film, like if I had to sum up the film in one word, it would be lonely.
yeah, yeah.
And that was something that, I wanted to speak to you about. How do you write in a script that must have sort of a lot of big gaps in it because we're just following her picking? How do you write the emotions that come out?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I always think of it in scenes, and I don't know, it's almost like because the film to a degree is like free from the notion of like progression through plot. It actually
Yeah.
allows me a lot more to almost create more like a web of ideas. And I think it's kind of reading and rereading. I don't know. I didn't have a theory, and it was the first time I was writing. So it was more like I was collating ideas from the conversations I was having with pickers. And then anytime something felt interesting or like resonated with me, or something that was repeated often, so I felt like it was something that the pickers I was talking to were noticing, all of a sudden it felt important to bring into the film. And I mean, that was about it. And then I think it was almost like, how can I build the film as like an accumulation of ideas, maybe
Yeah.
more than an accumulation of events. Because I did want it to stay true to what I felt would be like, a week and a half, like a couple of weeks in a character's life. And so I had almost that limitation to myself, even to like about the ending of the film. I wanted her to return to work because I felt, well, this feels like it would be reality. Like her life isn't about to change, even if we really would like to change her life. It isn't going to change immediately. And
Yeah.
so, like, how can I end the film with her returning to work, but also like not have that be the ending, because that would be the most depressing ending. And I was also very mindful to try and not make the film too depressing, which I realize I have failed to a degree,
I
but I
mean,
tried.
you tried, and there was a part of me that was like, no, because, and I was thinking, because I've had jobs like this in the past, that when you ask for the day off and they say no, and then you take it as a sick day, I'm like, they know,
Yeah.
so then there was part of me that's like, is she going to go in and she's just going to be fired? So I really I was teetering on where you were going to take us. But I think you're right. I think maybe we do need a little bit of hope.
Yes, for sure, for sure. Yeah. It is, it's for me, it's like more hope than optimism. Because
Yeah.
I also feel like I didn't want to give like a cheap, like it needed to be an ending that I believed in. It even if I wanted it to be hopeful, it needed to be like hope that I could get behind, and not just like, well, if we just put a smile in our faces and we keep on going, and yeah, under the current circumstances of what we're living through, it is challenging to like stay hopeful,
Yeah,
but it's possible. I just think, yeah,
it
yeah,
is.
yeah,
It is.
yeah.
I want to get into the nitty-gritty. So when we're in these corridors and you're filming her picking, sometimes it's from behind, the camera's moving sort of precisely with her. I want to know about that setup and really bringing us into that right there.
Yeah, so like the one of the very first shots of her working is a really long continuous shot of her picking items, and the camera is sort of floating between the scanner, the item, and
Yeah.
the shelf, and it's just kind of doing this dance. And actually, that technically was probably one of the hardest shots for us to do. We did like, I don't know if it was 20 odd, 30 odd takes of that single shot, because it was so hard to get the choreography right. So that was actually very challenging technically. Yeah, I guess I wanted to get to know Aurora from the task, and I knew from research how relentless it was, how it is. You have like, between 20 to 40 seconds to reach the next item. and you're in constantly like the moment you scan it and you put it in the tote was that box that where
Yeah.
they like collect the items. The moment you do that, the scanner gives you the next item and it gives you another, another sort of um, rate for you to reach it. So it was relentless, and I wanted that to be depicted in the film. But then there's also the contrast between that, which is what happens during 10-hour days of a picker that is by themselves in those aisles, and uh, the breaks, for example, which were actually really static, and like the
Yeah.
time in the flat as well. And I kind of like that idea of contrast. I think it was maybe something to do with, yeah, the aspect of like loneliness and like the perception of time and of like emptiness as well. And yeah, I think from that became sort of, I guess maybe like part of the visual concept behind the film. Yeah.
Yeah. Because when she's in the sort of dining hall and when she's there with all those people and you think, oh, this should be great. I think she felt more lonely than she did when she was working.
Yeah.
There was
Yeah.
such a pain to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, which you just did that brilliantly.
Thank
There
you.
were people there, but they might as well have not been there.
Yeah, I wanted her. It's weird because I ended up actually writing a lot of characters around her. And I don't think, like, I didn't realize this, the producer didn't realize this, even the casting director didn't until we did a breakthrough of the script and we realized we were casting like 55 speaking roles. And that was a big shock because we thought, well, she seems mainly alone. She's actually not. She's interacting with a lot of people. It's just
Yeah,
that the conversations are so like superficial and, on a sort of small talk level that it's almost like harder to then um yeah, it's almost harder to feel her loneliness that way because she is surrounded by people and you feel these opportunities are there and somehow they don't work out. And also something that was important for me, and maybe this relates to what we were talking about, hope, was that I didn't want her to um, be like suffering from the actions of people around her. Like I didn't want her or us to feel like the people around her were mean to her. Because I think this is also something that is sometimes very easy to fall into, and to blame what she's going through on the people that are not connecting with her or that aren't helping her or all of that. And I really wanted to remove that, like that almost perspective of like the possibility of blaming them.
yeah,
And in earlier drafts of the script, these characters were a lot harder on her. It was at points she never really asked for help, but at points you could feel that, they were given opportunities to help her and they wouldn't take them. And this something along the time when I was writing started to feel wrong for me. Obviously I wrote this project over several years, and I guess I was a better writer towards the end of the writing process. And at that point, I was like, I really want to change this. This feels wrong. And I don't know why I wrote it. I think I wrote it maybe influenced by, some of the films that I love, but that end up doing this.
yeah,
And at that point, I removed most conflict, yeah, almost any conflict that she had with the characters around her, from her managers, flatmates. And yeah, all of a sudden I felt like the film was stronger. It was harder to like identify the antagonist, and yet
yeah.
we had the correct one also. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, because all the conversations, they're like you said, they're very surface level. Even her, her supposed friend who she's driving in with, they never managed to get any deeper.
Yeah.
And then when she's out in the bar and you can see her sort of craving that human interaction, and even then they're talking about like the bridge and the violence that happens on it. It's just, you just keep it all at that very, yeah, very surface level.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I also think is what she's noticing. That was a concept we sort of used also visually for the film that we called like the hyper-focusing moments, where at points the camera would do close-ups that we would usually not have in the rest of the film. And those were like really important moments, I guess, where the character is paying attention to that gesture of the hand, for example, that is so important for her that, it justified all of our undivided attention to be in that hand. But then I think this idea of like focusing on certain aspects and what that revealed about the character's perspective on life ended up also being kind of a guiding element even for the conversations, you know. So like obviously she's noticing what people are talking about and she's picking up on certain themes, but she's also when she's collecting the items, all of a sudden throughout the film she starts giving meaning to the ropes and she starts noticing them. And you know, we have a rope straight away in the first scene, but at that point it means nothing to us, it means nothing to her. Towards the end of the film, those items all of a sudden have a meaning. And so I think it was also to do with that, like her perspective. Same with like whenever we would be editing dialogue scenes, we would leave the silences in and sometimes even try to expand them because again, it's this heightened sense of because the interaction feels so meaningful for her, she's noticing how maybe it's not going well. And
Yeah.
part of me thinks, oh, if I was to edit that scene from, for example, the perspective of like in her conversation with Chris, the flatmate, if I was to edit that scene from his perspective, maybe the conversation is a lot smoother than from hers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you feel the clunkiness. And so in the flat, there's a lot of the times with her, and again, it's going back to that loneliness. The
Mm,
only sound you can hear is either the washing machine, which is often going, or there's the footsteps. But then with that little interaction with Chris, there's some music in the background.
mm.
So you sort of think, oh, right, I don't know, it gives us a little bit of hope. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
she's going to have a beer and whatever. And then I'm sat there going, no, it's just, no, it's not working.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'd love to know how you played with the sound in the flat and amplifying that loneliness for us.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, obviously the one of the recurring ideas in the film is the washing of the laundry is
Yeah,
something that she will talk about in the interview. It's something that the first coworker, one of the first coworkers that she has a sort of meaningful conversation with also talks about, and then we see her doing it in the flat. And so that was almost like an important sound. I don't know. I don't know. I like the idea of like the visual of the rotating, you know, this idea of
yeah,
like endless cycle. And in this case, it would be like the clothing cycle. But yeah, so this sound was interesting to me. And the same with like the microwave. It's almost like we had to try and use all the sounds that already existed in reality and you know
yeah,
what would be the sounds of this kitchen and then try and amplify them and use them in moments where they felt you know meaningful even if we were to just notice them on a sort of subconscious level. Then of course yeah you're right, we also have the steps and like the sounds outside. I guess like when she's in the room, for example, in the scene where she wants to talk to Chris and her only cues that there might be someone in the kitchen is actually the footsteps that she hears and the doors closing and shutting.
yeah,
And I guess at that point, we already know like how much she longs for connection, that even just her listening to the steps, we know she's trying to work out if someone is going to the kitchen. And the kitchen becomes almost like the only social place, the only place that is actually shared, and one of the remaining like collective spaces in the flat, actually, because the you know the living room is a bedroom, has been
yeah.
converted to a bedroom. And so even that collective space has been lost. Yeah, so the kitchen ended up being actually quite an important location. And then in terms of, I mean, obviously the warehouse sound was really important to get the scale as well. It was really hard to find warehouse that would have the size that we needed it to be.
Yeah.
So it ended up being a collage of several different spaces, but obviously with sound and echoes and like Inez, our sound designer, did a beautiful work in like getting that dimension through the sound, and also how busy it is because
Yeah.
again we were working in warehouses that weren't operative. So at points the only steps we would hear in the shoot would be of Aurora's. Yeah,
But you hear, so it's noisy, but also there's, I don't know, I felt like a claustrophobia because you've got the big high shelves, and
yeah.
especially when you're filming her picking, it felt big, but at the same time, I don't know, there was something really enclosed. And again, I think that just feeds into her mindset
Yeah,
and what she's
yeah.
feeling.
And the humming, like I remember in one of the largest warehouses I visited, it sounded like you were inside a fridge. That was the best way I could describe it. And I remember we looked for a long time for that sound. And we tried and played with like, okay, how annoying can we make it to a degree and not push it too far that it's so uncomfortable. But I just remember like how loud it was. And I don't even think in the film is as loud as it would have been in reality. I tried, but
I'm trying to think now if I noticed that, but maybe I don't know, maybe it's one of these things that you're engaging in something else, and
yeah.
now I'll go back to it and I'll be like, oh, what's that roaring sound?
Yeah.
I know obviously everything surrounds Aurora. And you went through a lot of tapes to find her.
Yes.
What was it that you were looking for? Was there like a key spark?
Well, I knew that Aurora didn't really share much, so I knew that whoever played Aurora needed to be engaging even in silences. And I think that's quite a challenge,
Yeah,
obviously. And I also wasn't sure if I don't know, I think I've been lucky that I worked with incredible actors, and I always felt like there was little directing for me to do to a degree because they were already so amazing that I just felt like I was more of a like I was there to support other than, like direct. And yeah, I think Joanna straight away from the very first tape, I could see how engaging she was and how even when she held the pauses, even when she didn't have words to say, I was still totally like looking at her face and just wanting to know what she was going to do next. And that felt like, yeah, we were going to need that in the film. But Joanna just had that. I think she just had an intuition for who Aurora was, and that felt right. Yeah.
yeah. There's one scene that I still don't think I understand it. It's when she's in the park
Yeah.
and she's lying down.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know. I'd love to know sort of what you intended there, because I think there's loads of different ways we could take it.
Yeah. Yeah. In my mind, I think she always just after that interview, I think she decided to lie down. I think it's as simple as that.
It's
And
just exhaustion.
yeah, just taking a rest and, being also it's one of the first times we see her in a more like in a natural setting,
Yeah,
which up until then, yeah, we don't really see her in the city. We don't really see her outside the flat or the warehouse, So it felt like there was also something, maybe also for me and also thinking about the audience that after that interview, I just wanted to like breathe a little. And yeah, and then I think the idea came from when the park shuts and Aurora is still there, and the security guard tells her, the park is shut, we need everyone to go. And I like the idea that she just doesn't respond, almost
yeah,
just as a like, let's see what happens. And it then kind of it goes from there, to realizing that she's going to get attention or care in this way. Yeah, and I guess also this was something I kind of wanted to also keep present throughout the film was that, people do care, because I think that's something very easy to fall the idea that, oh, is everyone for themselves, and this idea that you're competing against each other, very, very, very present in the times that we're living. And I don't think at all that is how at least most people I've interacted with seemed to me. Most people actually are very caring and value you and want to support in, however way they can.
yeah.
And so that idea that, throughout the film she experiences these forms of care from strangers were important. And I guess this is maybe the biggest, act of kindness in the film, really. Yeah.
I definitely got that. And I mean, I I live in the south of England, so I was there and I was like, oh, people in Scotland are just so much nicer. They're so much friendlier. But I mean, yeah, I felt there's humanity. I think it ties into the hope thing as well. There's
Yeah.
humanity and that hug that she receives in the park is just beautiful. It
Yeah.
really is.
Yeah.
And it should be joyful, but it's not. It's really sad. So yeah, I definitely think the humanity shines through, which we
Yeah.
do need.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think that, yeah, that to me is like an important reminder,
Yeah,
that, if you're, and I think that you see this every day. And I think it shows our actual nature that, it is cooperative, it isn't competitive. If someone falls in front of you, you're going, you help most of
Of
the
course.
time. You're inclined to come to go and check on the person. You don't question if it's going to be a profitable option, if it's going to make money or not. That is not something you're thinking about. You just do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And so I think that to me is revealing of our nature, especially in a time when, money seems to guide every decision and everything needs to be profitable. And I think more and more is important to kind of think about what we actually value instead of just money for money's sake. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I completely agree.
Mm.
Okay, I've got a couple of questions to finish off. First of all, I'd love to know what you learned and what sort of growth you felt, obviously going from these shorts, and this is your debut feature.
Um, I think I was fairly scared to start with. I think, it is a big difference going from like a small short film crew where you're shooting for 3 days to all of a sudden shooting for, 25 days with a massive crew. And yeah, at the start, I was, even if I didn't show it, I was quite scared in the sense of like everything I didn't know, like everything I had never done before, and I was going to have to. And even like directing several actors, I realized how in both of my shorts, I had only worked with one actor at a time. I had actually not really directed dialogues, and that only hit me very close to the shoot. It was just like, you never directed two actors at a time. How are you going to speak to two people at the same time? In some scenes, six people. And so all these things started, how your mind works. It
Yeah.
just starts like catastrophizing
Yeah,
in
yeah.
all
Yeah.
different ways this could go wrong. And so that was scary. And then at the same time, I think I was extremely lucky with like the generosity. And maybe that came from the film, I'm not sure. But because I felt like I wrote the film with the idea that, people are generous, that it was almost like I had to learn that lesson from the film. And so I just very quickly learned that, you can just say you don't know how to do something on set, even if you're the director. And, obviously there's these ideas that as a director, you must know everything and you must tell people what to do. And I was like, oh, I have no intentions of being like anyone's boss. Like I don't want to be an employee, but I also don't want to be a boss.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I was just, the moment I realized I could just say, I don't know how to do this, people were eager to help and were eager to come up with ideas. And all of a sudden, this entire pressure just disappeared. I was like, well, I can just, it's okay. Six people's like, we casted the right people. And so we're going to be able to do this.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was probably the biggest lesson was like, I don't need to know everything and I don't need to pretend that I know everything as well.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
people
and I think
understand.
yeah, and it
I mean,
made the
film
environment
sets are
on set
collaborative. Yeah.
yeah so much more horizontal as well, where if there's a problem, not everyone's just staring at me like, go on then.
Yeah. And I
Yeah,
think that's definitely come with time as well. I
yeah,
think a lot of that hierarchy and a lot of the stuff that doesn't really work is being shed, which is obviously a welcome relief.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah. And it's kind of questioning, just like I like to question the way that we work generally, is also kind of questioning how we work on a set and within the film industry. Yeah,
Absolutely, because everything is just a different version of the bigger system, really.
yeah, for
And then
sure.
it's just how we act in it, how we survive, how we manage in it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I mean, and there's still a lot in the film industry that I think could change. Like days are really long. I find like baffling how crews can have like personal lives with I shot for 25 days and then I returned to my life,
Yeah,
trying to write the next films. But I find it baffling how crews, have a life outside the set because the days are just incredibly long. Yeah, that was also shocking because I guess in the shorts I was like, yeah, okay, it's 3 days, so I get it. We're gonna make the most because the budgets aren't big and we need to. But I was kind of shocked when I saw the first schedule for a feature and I realized it was totally normal.
yeah.
Um, yeah,
So that's what you need to do. You need to make a meta film about how hard it is, the repetition of working on
Yeah,
film.
that'll be like a couple ahead.
Yeah.
It'll be looking at the film industry. I'm still processing my first jobs.
So, I mean, finally, I'm asking all the nominees this year. You came from shorts. This is your first feature. What is the best short film you've seen recently, or your favorite short film ever?
Oh, my favorite short film ever. Um, I was going to pick a short film of a friend that I think about often. She is my friend, and she also worked with me on the film as a script supervisor. Her film is called oh my gosh, Shimmering Bodies.
Okay.
Shimmering Bodies. It's from a couple of years ago. It was in Cannes. It's a film by Ines Lemsch. It's a beautiful film, and I think about it often. I don't know why actually, but it stayed with me. So yeah, I would pick that one as my favorite, I think.
Beautiful. And so, what's next? Are you working on more feature scripts?
Yes, so I'm kind of slowly returning to my life as a writer, which I enjoy, but also now it's like it's I'm returning to that life while still promoting on falling. So it's a little
Yeah.
bit new, this way of working. But yeah, I really enjoy writing. So I feel like I'm kind of back in my women's cave and trying to yeah write the next ones and also in the very late stages of one that I'm hoping to shoot soonish. Yeah.
Nice. And have you found that the sort of the BIFA nominations and all of the awards and things that you've accoladed, are they driving you?
Not driving, but I think they help maybe get the next projects going. I mean, I don't know, but using at least my short films as like examples, it was really helpful for the shorts to do well. So I could then like have the next script ready and
Yeah.
when people are paying attention, use it straight away to get the next one going. And I think that is something that I've learned and that I mean, I don't know, it might have been a coincidence, but that seemed to have worked. Use that attention to get the next one.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that helps. I think that helps a lot because without that, it's much harder, I think, to get a project off the ground when people aren't asking you for ideas. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Yeah, no, thank you so much.